Guys, today will be probably the last video of the year, the Christmas classic that is Russian nationals. However, please note I will only be talking about the ladies, as if we are completely honest, is the only discipline we care about in Russia, and the men's field has been completely barren for the last few years, almost decade. However, I will also mention Alona Kostornaia, who is an honorable mention due to the fact that she is now in pairs. And the other fields which the Russians excel at, like dance and pairs, I have already not been covering in most of the season, so why start now? First, we need to talk about everyone that was missing. Obviously, our Olympic champion Anna Gorbachova was not here, as she has almost officially begun the skating star to influencer pipeline, being exclusively an influencer. Then her other half, the Sagitova to her Medvedeva, some might say, Alexandra Trusova, was also missing. She has also become more of a show skater, gala skater, influencer, and sometimes even singer for her fans. Additionally, a sad surprise for me who has not been following the Russian season too closely is that our empress, Elizaveta Tuktamisheva, is missing. Our resident token adult has finally chosen to soft retire in the competitive field. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that I will miss her entertaining programs, her adult themes, and her empress antics. So now we are only left with teenagers around the ice. Another noticeable missing name is that of Daria Usoshova, who has yet to fully recover from her injury. Even though she did come back to the ice for a few moments, she opted to go the academic route, choosing to go to school rather than continue chasing the pipe dream of being a high-level competitive skater in Russia once again. Plus, with her recovery process, plus her old age of 17, that is sarcasm, you guys, the reality is that she would never truly be competitive again at the high level that she was before, especially when compared to the rising stars of the next generation. And speaking of the next generation, some very surprising missing names from this competition was the Sofias, Sofia Samodelkina and Sofia Akatieva. For Samodelkina, the last we heard, she was requesting a release from the Russian Skating Federation as she wanted to switch countries and represent Kazakhstan, which many people attributed to the Russians still being banned from international competitions. But now that they're back in play for the Olympics, I wonder if her plans will change at all. Although representing Kazakhstan might still be a benefit for her, as there is way less competition. And who knows, maybe we might still see her at the Olympics, just under the Kazakh flag. Then there's the sadder story of Sofia Akatieva, whose Olympic chances might already be over. Akatieva was slated for so long as the next heir, the next rising star, and now that title seems to have completely shifted over to her main rival, Adelia Petrosian. Sofia Akatieva went from being last season's champion to now being a complete non-factor due to a mysterious leg injury, which we never really got any details about. She just suddenly pulled out mid-competition last season, and that is the last we've ever heard of her. And finally, someone who was missing from the ladies' competition, but was not missing from the competition overall, is Miss Iconic Little Devil 03 herself, Alona Kostornaia, the only one of 3A who is still active, even if it is at the bottom of the totem pole of a different discipline. First, let's start with our honorable mention, Miss Alona Kostornaia in pairs. She ended up in 9th place, which is to be expected because she just barely joined the discipline, and then immediately married her partner. That is a lot of change to get used to, and a dynamic which needs to be perfected before she can show true results. Even though in my heart of hearts, I truly believe she will never show top 3 or maybe even top 5 kind of behavior in pairs, because pairs in Russia is just as competitive as the ladies, if not more, as all the top teams globally come from Russia. And Alona is still very much a newcomer who has time against her. At this nationals, her short was a pretty sentimental piece. However, any lifts or throws that come from her are still very much nerve-inducing for me, as I have yet to trust her skills in this discipline, and if I'm being completely honest, I still don't trust the skills of her husband either. The good thing, though, is that Kostornaia's great skating skills do transfer well into the pairs discipline. The bad thing is that so do her technical skills, which are very different skills needed for the pairs discipline. So of course, there was a fall and a few step outs. And out of her 2 programs, maybe controversial opinion, I like the free better as it is Hunger Games themed, and I just like the darker concept more. Even though I will admit the outfits and the packaging for the short are way superior. In the free, the instability continued with step outs and some moments of hesitation, which led Kostornaia and her husband to end up in 9th place. The main thing I noticed from them is that they seem to get very, very tired in the second half of the program, which makes them run out of steam and look very slow. Also, Alona having to physically pick up her husband from the ice did not look great in the free, but I understand that pairs must be the most tiring of all the disciplines, especially for the men. But I will say that when they do good, they look great, at least to my untrained eye. Hopefully they will surprise me next season and start ranking a little bit higher next year. Now let's jump into the main event, that is the ladies' discipline. I am sad to say that in last place we have the Team Tutberidze official underdog Maja Khromykh, which this is the first time in a long time that I can remember seeing an Eteri girl in last place. I honestly thought that just didn't happen, especially because of the famous Eteri bonus. However, here is where Maja has landed. And at first I was confused because her shirt was not the train wreck I was expecting from being in last place. She didn't even have a fall, just one horrible landing, but everything else was okay enough. Now, as we have learned, this made me fear watching the free because she is in last place. And I was right to fear the free because it opened with a very bad fall that foreshadowed the rest of her program and ultimately placement. It was not as stress-inducing as a typical Kevin Amos disaster, but it was a similar level of disaster as her free was plagued with jumps. And to make matters worse, the Russian press was not kind to Maja. Not that they have ever been, but the articles posted the next day quoted Tatiana Tarasova, the honorable coach of Russia, quote unquote, saying, "She is so big, maybe it's better not to participate. Stay at home, train, get in shape, and then show yourself to the entire country." Which is just why? Why would you ever say that out loud, let alone to a young athlete, to the national press? Like, what possessed you to say that? But alas, here we are. I personally don't think I would have liked either one of Maja's programs if they had been clean, but I want to give Maja props because she never let the falls distract from her performance of the choreography. I honestly think that Maja has great stage presence on the ice and she performs to the judges with high energy every single time. But if the jumps aren't landing, well, you won't get the reward, especially in Russia. So here she ends in last place. Now we're jumping all the way up from 18th place to 7th place with Alina Gorbachova. Sadly, she is probably best known now as the girl who ran away from her coach / disappeared for about 8 hours, and therefore a national search party was launched. We talked about this earlier this year. You can click on the link down below. Before that, she was known as a rising star in skating, but now the truth is that most of the eyes are on her, not just for her skill, because after being found, she decided to stay with coach, even after it was revealed that she ran away. And last we heard, they are still living together. The short, if I remember correctly, is her program themed after a tree. And I like it better than I remember. Her jumps were steady, there were no falls, and the step sequence was actually very impressive to me, even though she lost balance a little bit after she did the splits. But she did the splits, so honestly, I forgive her. I still liked the choreography the best for her short program. Then it was time for the Queen's Gambit free program and the giant chess piece in the back of her costume. Again, why? Like, why? It helps no one to be hit upside the head with a giant rhinestone theme symbol on your costume. Basically, I disliked the costume just as much as I did the first time I saw it at the beginning of the season. Great that we could discover this together. My feelings don't change. The free also did not start with positive energy as she popped her first jump. However, she redeemed herself with the rest of the jumps, only having one towards the end where she had a bad landing / almost step out. But the speed at which she skates into these jumps is very impressive, and as always, I believe heightens the difficulty level. And I think that her speed also helped her play off any mistakes as they were more smoothly transitioned out of that. And her movements were just so quick and precise that it kind of distracted you from anything she could have messed up. Her step sequence was once again very impressive, and her inherent musicality is displayed well, so I'll give her that. The costume was bad, but the step sequence are still bangers. Overall, I enjoyed both of her programs, and if she skated completely clean, I would not be surprised to see her on the podium at like a bronze or even 4th place. I wish nothing but success for Alina, but most of all, I truly hope that behind the scenes, it is a comfortable situation for Alina. Also, I'm curious to see how far Alina will get without the Team Tutberidze name behind her, because she's a truly talented skater, and if she skates clean, she could be real competition. Then, in 4th place, we have another familiar name, Ksenia Sinitsyna, who is another skater who has made a name for herself as a high-ranking non-Eteri girl. Ksenia has become somewhat of a crowd favorite due to her classical style and her beautiful costumes. This consistency in her presentation has slowly but surely garnered her many fans. And Ksenia continues this tradition as she looked beautiful in the short program and skated very gracefully in her classic style. Also, the vibe of old Hollywood matched the program's vibe very well. A+ for packaging on my part. I really enjoyed this short. It was soothing in a way that only a clean skating program can be. Also, her little yes moment at the end endeared me to her even more, because of course it did, because anytime anyone celebrates after a clean performance, my heart grows twice the size like the Grinch. I am an easy sell. For the free, I didn't know how I felt at first about her costume, but the more that I looked at it, the more that I liked it. And for some reason, the costume was giving me Greece. Like it could have been in a local performance of Greece. And the program itself, I love. We all know my weakness is Spanish/Latin programs, and the music was amazing. The choreo was amazing. The energy was great. The jumps were clean. The crowd was behind her. It was just a good experience all around for me watching Ksenia. She made me feel the happiest and most at peace. I never felt nervous for her. And with Ksenia, I feel like the name of the game has been slow and steady. And because of that, that made me feel comfortable and happy to see this success for her. Hopefully the slow and steady trend continues, and the next Russian nationals, she is on the podium. In third place, we have, surprisingly, the reigning queen herself, current Team Tutberidze it girl, Kamila Valieva. This placement for Kamila Valieva made me go, oh, I am not surprised, since sadly the window is closing in on her for the so-called Eteria expiration date, but it is still surprising to not see her in first, especially because she had such a dominant run in Russia, even after the Olympic debacle, which we call the doping. But a few performances have already been kind of alluding to the end of her reign. That being said, she had an amazing short, and I couldn't tell if she had any lapses in her skills. She looked just as trained and just as talented as I remember her. But even Kamila herself seemed satisfied with that performance in the short. Then in the free, we have the Wakanda program, which I had completely forgotten existed. So when the music began, I did burst out laughing because I was like, right, I forgot Russia loves this. I also believe that she upgraded her dress for this program, and I really like it. Like, it really looks good. However, the T'Challa necklace could not save her from the fall in her opening jump, which we all know is a bad omen for the rest of the program. So I was very nervous. I was like, oh no, this is how it begins. The crumbling, the Eteria expiration date. I was ready to spiral. But besides that one fall in the opening jump, she truly recovered, landing all of her other jumps and then pouring all of her energy into the choreo. I did notice that her jumps in the free were not as high as that in the short, and she seemed a little bit more fatigued to me towards the end. But besides that, Kamila fought her way through the program and succeeded. Besides that first fall and a couple of tight landings, Kamila retained her crown in the eyes of the people, and you can see that by how vigorously they support her. Her fans are fanatical. It is like the Medvedev bots and the Zaggy bots combined. They have united in the cause of supporting Kamila Valieva. Because the reality is that Kamila Valieva is not just a skater, she has become a symbol of Russian pride due to the literal trial and tribulations that she went through at the last Olympics, also known as the doping, which I think is why it's becoming so hard to find a confirmed heir, at least for me, that will follow in Kamila's footsteps. Because right now, it feels like Kamila could still attempt another Olympic cycle due to the amount of support and the amount of skill that she has remaining within her. That is, of course, if the trial that she's still currently in does not end in a complete ban of her for the next 4 years, or if it even gets a verdict by 2026, because at this point it feels like it'll never get a verdict. Essentially, because of the fall and maybe a few small mistakes here and there, Kamila ended up in third place, but the country and the judges would have loved to see her walk away in first, or at least that is the vibe that I got. In second place, we have the biggest surprise for me, even bigger than Kamila. In third place is the fact that it is an angel of Plushenko's star student, Sophia Muravyeva. She began her short program with a triumphant triple axel, which I assume has been giving her trouble in the season, judging by the way the commentator screamed when she landed it. The commentator, I suspect, is also Tatiana Tarasova. Her subsequent jumps were just as great, and she was completely given herself into the step sequence. Talk about armography, because Muravyeva was freaking giving it. Sophia was completely in it. So in it, in fact, that she actually fell backwards during the choreographic sequence. If it wasn't for this silly mistake, she would have had a completely clean short program. At the end of her short, Sophia seemed to be beating herself over the fact that she had such a silly fall, but she still did an amazing job and ended up in a great position for the free. In the free, Sophia achieved her dream by having a completely clean program, and song mashup aside, she did amazing. However, because I didn't follow the Russian fake Grand Prix, I don't know if this is an anomaly for Sophia or if this has been a slow build towards this moment. But either way, it is amazing to watch, especially because Sophia Muravyeva has a bit of Lindsay Thorgren effect in the face, where it just looks like she could cry at any moment. So seeing her be so strong and succeed is just extra satisfactory. Plushenko also looked extremely ecstatic about the fact that his star student was finally placing so high at nationals. Nationals. And with the immense support that she got from the crowd afterwards, it feels like Lushenko has finally got his star. And Sophia Muravyeva has become the biggest disruptor of Team Tutberidze's monopoly of the podium. With these non-Eteri girls skating at such a high level and succeeding, it is starting to feel like the Tutberidze monopoly has finally started to loosen up, because she used to have a death grip on the ladies' discipline. But now we see more faces and different coaches on the sidelines, placing just as high. However, does this mean that we will finally get a non-Eteri girl at the Olympics? The last time that this happened was in 2014, mere moments before Eteri Tutberidze's meteoric rise. But Sophia Muravyeva, Alina Gorbachova, and Ksenia Sinitsyna give me hope that the Russian skating field is about to get a bit more diverse in terms of the coaches. Or maybe I'm just naive. Let me know if you think that this means that the Team Tutberidze monopoly is not as strong as before, because I feel it. I feel it a bit shaky. Then finally, in first place, as it has somehow become a tradition, we have a member of Team Tutberidze with the gold at Russian Nationals, and it is little Adelia Petrosian. I do have to say that her Michael Jackson short makes me more uncomfortable than Camila's What Kind of Program could ever. The only Michael Jackson program that I have been able to digest and actually enjoy was Junhwa Cha's interpretation of the Michael Jackson musical on Broadway. I think because Junhwa Cha just had that swagger and it was like a mashup of cover songs. However, the fact that Adelia Petrosian is so young and dancing to Michael Jackson dressed as Michael Jackson makes me uncomfortable. There's something about it that just makes me really uncomfortable because she's so little. Regardless, I will admit that seeing Adelia just fly through the choreography and her jumps being consistently clean at such a high level is crazy to witness. Something else that was crazy to witness was the fact that right before the free, Eteri and little Adelia Petrosian did the signature exercise of holding hands and breathing in and out, which reminded me so much of Ksenia Medvedeva, as it was a tradition that they begun. And Adelia's striking resemblance to Ksenia is just too much to not compare these two moments. Like side-by-side shots, it was crazy. I had a flashback. Then her free program began with the typical bad omen of the first jump ending in a fall. Now that makes the top 3 girls all having at least one fall at this competition, which makes me wonder what would have been the placement if all top 3 girls had skated clean. Would have been the exact same? Would have been different? I think the top 3 girls would have shuffled a little bit. But that doesn't matter because Adelia nailed the rest of her free program and the judges rewarded her with first place. And I have to admit that I liked her free. I just didn't like the dress and the gloves. There's something about it, especially the cut, that gives me like unfinished. And it does remind me of one of Evgenia's old dresses. Maybe, I don't know. There's something about it I don't like, and maybe it's that. On the other hand, Adelia finished the season on top with the title of Russian national champion, taking it away from Sofia Akatieva. And her win does seem to forebode some sort of new era, as the younger Eteri girl has succeeded the reigning queen, and it is a scenario we have seen many times before. Does this win solidify, in your guys' eye, the fact that she is now the official new Eteri it girl, or is it just a stepping stone, but it hasn't officially given her that title? Another question I have is she Team Tutberidze's pick for the Olympic season? Like, is she their best bet? Like, first being in the Olympic team and then getting an Olympic medal? Because right now, it looks like she is. It looks like she has finally garnered the next big title, the next heir with this win. But let me know what you guys think. However, I also feel like there is still enough time in the next year for other variables to become new characters in this saga. But for now, Adelia does seem to be the new heir and the best hope for the Olympics, at least for Team Tutberidze. I do hope that we get some non-Eteri girls in there. Hopefully Sophia Muravyeva or somebody else, maybe even Ksenia Sinitsyna or Alina Gorbachova. Maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I'm hoping. Maybe the reason I don't want to give her the next big thing title is because I fear that Adelia Petrosian might become the Olympic favorite. A title which has historically the same energy as a fall in your opening jump. Not good. But I am cheering for Adelia, and I can only hope that she does not get injured during the Olympic season. And that is it for Russian nationals. Side note, I also want to mention the Japanese nationals also occurred, and because God is good, Shoma Uno was the champion for the men and Kaori Sakamoto took the title for the ladies, just as it should be. As expected, only bangers from Japan. Now that the Russians are officially back in the race for the Olympics, I will be paying much more attention to domestic competitions and possibly their introduction to international competitions. We'll see what the ISU decides, but it wouldn't surprise me if they start introducing them as neutral athletes in order to help them qualify for the Olympics, or I don't know how else they're going to do that. But I will be paying much more attention to the Russian skaters because they are back in the games. As I said, the moment that announcement went out, the Hunger Games has begun in Russia, and may the odds be ever in their favor, especially for Adelia Petrosian, because I am worried that she's now the Olympic favorite. But who knows, the Olympic season has yet to begin. And that is all for today's video. Please let me know what you guys think of Team Tutberidze, of the Russian nationals, of Adelia Petrosian. Is she the next heir? Do we think we're going to see Sofia Katieva have a random comeback a la Alina Gorbachova after she recovered from having an injury in her foot and then rose to the top during the Olympic season? Who knows? All I do know is that we will all be paying close attention, because what else can happen in 2026 that we have not already seen? What shit show has the universe in store for us now that the Russians are officially back and stirring up the drama? And as always, shout out to Leslie, Natalia, Timothy, Tori, and V. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.